All right, we're here with another episode of Around the County with Supervisor Jim Desmond. I'm Miles Himmel, Communications Director for District 5, and we're kind of following up on a conversation we had last week about youth sports. I think it's crazy that so many are leaving to having to go to play in Arizona, and we talked about that. So today we've got Brian Enge from Surf Sports here in San Diego. Brian, you're the CEO of Surf Sports, in fact.
I'm the CEO of Surf Sports. I'm lucky enough to be able to oversee both the club, which is where all of our kids play, as well as our tournaments and facilities that bring all kinds of kids from around the country and around the world here to San Diego to play soccer.
So what is, for folks that don't know, what's Surf Sports? And because it's a little more than just a team.
Yeah. Surf Sports is a pretty interesting organization. So we've got a club of soccer kids from ages 5 to 18, about 850 kids, which really represent the most elite kids around San Diego. We've created more college scholarship players, more professional players, and more U.S. national team players than any other club in the United States. We also are fortunate enough to have a facility here in Del Mar, which is about 124 acres. And we use that facility basically to offer youth sports, mainly soccer, around the county. For teams, tournaments, and then we also host 4 of the largest tournaments in the country, which bring about $120 million of economic impact to San Diego every year.
What is, and then I'll let the supervisor ask, but my last question here in the beginning, what's the status right now? What's going on? What can't you do? What's the vibe?
The official word, Miles, for the status is frustration. We've actually, San Diego County did an amazing job getting us back at least to the fields and camp status before most of the state of California. So we were able to go back in early June, and at least kids have been, the official status of kids have been able to practice and be out on fields together. We, I think, are one of only 4 states left in the U.S. that is not allowed to play competitively and get out there and actually play games and tournaments and let kids actually compete, which is what they love to do. So kids are out on the fields, they're practicing, they're tired of practicing because kids want to play, not practice. And then the kids that are getting to play games are having to go out of state to do it, unfortunately.
Well, I got a question. So in practice, do they get to scrimmage against each other or no?
Well, Supervisor Desmond, that's a great question. It's I would say the way I would describe the way that we've gotten information from the state and frankly the county on this is one would be a black box because there has been so very little information, and then the other would be at best gray area or gray matter because it's really hard to tell. The official rules, if you read them specifically based on exactly what's been published by the state of California, is that kids actually can't be in contact in any way, shape, or form right now. They have to be 6 feet apart in everything they do in youth sports. Now, I would tell you that if you drive around to any park, any field around this county, you will see that no one is adhering to that anymore. And the kids are staying incredibly safe while doing it. So I think, unfortunately, what we're seeing is as much as the state says they want to follow the data, they're not following the science when it comes to this. And there's not a lot of common sense. There's not a lot of common sense when we can go get tattoos. We can sit in bars that are crowded. We can get on airplanes. We can go to beaches that are packed on the weekends. But kids can't play youth sports, which are primarily outdoors and primarily with kids where the infection rates are incredibly low. So common sense seems to be lacking, which I think is the biggest reason for our frustration.
Well, and I think that's, in just about every field too, the frustration of, why can this big box store be open or why can this store be open and mine can't, and I think that's, and a lot of people have just kind of shrugging their shoulders at this point in time, and some have given up, which is unfortunate. And a lot of these kids, they need to have that social interaction. And I think, as you said, they can only practice for so long and they want to play the games. So I think you mentioned a number. I forgot what that was. It was for the economic impact in San Diego County. Is that an annual number that you gave? And what was that?
Yeah, we're really good. Every 5 years, we update our economic impact report with a third-party validated group, and we did that again in 2019. And our economic impact is about $120 million to this county of San Diego. And that's about $7 million that drops to the bottom line from just a pure tax basis. And that really includes hotel rooms, restaurants, visits to, the zoo, we happen to be the largest user of hotel rooms in the city of San Diego. Larger than Comic-Con, larger than Farmers Insurance, larger than any single event, because we have so many events through the calendar, and people are coming from out of town because we offer sort of something that's very unique and what we would say is the best of the best.
Well, that's amazing, because you're right. And parents, when they come to visit, and families come to visit us to watch their children play, you're right. They go to the zoo, they go to the SeaWorld, they go to the Legoland, they go to Safari Park, they go to all those places that here for tourism in San Diego County. What are you hearing from the parents? Are you here? Are they? I'm sure it's frustration, but is anything in particular that stands out from the parents that you're hearing?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting evolution with families, right? And that, when we first kind of were told that we could reopen to in this camp scenario where we could get kids back on the field, parents were wary. And we knew that our biggest challenge was making sure the parents felt that they could trust what we were doing, and that we were, doing all the safe things to keep the kids healthy. And what you've watched is, and we've published our data throughout to our parents, and frankly, we've worked with all of our competitors around the county to publish data. And we've shown the families really clearly that there are no outbreaks happening on fields that we're overseeing. So we've been playing now for 5 months. We have not seen one case transmitted within a team. So we've had 12 cases overall. They've all been from siblings or from sleepovers or something. Kids bring a positive result into a training session, but in those training sessions, there's been absolutely there's been no transmission within a training session. So I think what you've seen is families and parents have evolved over time to sort of say, hey, you know what? We've been out here 3-4 days a week. Our kids are interacting, and we haven't seen or heard of any, transmission happening or any major, flare-ups. And so, slowly families start to trust, and they start to see that this is really safe. And then what you've seen is, then we mentioned the idea of, well, hey, there are games being played in Arizona. And the first time we said that, the family said that seems ridiculous. And then 3 weeks later, the families were saying, I'll do anything to let my kids play a game. Sure, I'll go to Arizona for the day. I'll go to Arizona for 2 days. And you just kind of watch them get more and more comfortable with the situation, more and more confident, I think, in the protocols that, all of the coaches and the kids and the tournaments and the events are putting on. And now I think families are realizing that, even going to Arizona, going and playing tournaments, they're doing this every weekend or every other weekend. They're seeing there are no flare-ups. So I think parents actually have quite a lot of confidence in the safety of things now. And now the parents are actually evolving to the next level, which is just pure frustration of, why am I spending so much money and time in my life going to Arizona to do this when I should be able to do this safely in California? And I think most of the parents are knowledgeable enough to know that they're one of 4 states that's in this mode. And I think they're, significantly unhappy.
Do you know, and I'm not sure if you know this or not, but if we're one of 4 states, so you have 46 other states that are doing it, has there been any outbreaks or been any repercussions of those in those other states and for youth sports, or particularly for soccer?
Yeah. So, I want to be careful, right? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, and I want to be incredibly cautious because we're super respectful of being good community citizens here. But I will tell you that, because of our profile in the national landscape, we talk to people in Texas, Massachusetts, Georgia, Montana, Idaho, Washington, all the time. And I can tell you that those guys have been playing massive tournaments and games for months now. And across the board, what you're hearing is there are no flare-ups happening amongst the kids. And what we keep really hearing, which is, I think, the indicator that gives us the most comfort, is that no one's seeing it transmitted between players on a field at all. And so, they've most of these states have actually been playing widespread events. I mean, we are, some of our teams on the East Coast were involved in teams or tournaments that have 300 teams, and you didn't see any flare-ups from that. And people are doing a really, really good job tracking. I would say I'm really proud of and impressed by the youth sports community as a whole in terms of how careful everyone's been. Most of these events are only allowing one parent on the sideline, if at all. They are only, everyone is wearing masks, everyone is sanitizing, only one coach on the sideline. So everybody's doing the smart things to allow the kids to play. And it really has been incredibly safe.
Well, I think part of the frustration is you're willing to do the right things, and it sounds like you are. If you're willing, and we all know what the protocols are. The taking of temperatures if necessary, and doing the masks and everything else, and keeping the kids safe. One of the pushbacks that I've gotten from in trying to open up more youth sports or schools or just about anything is, okay, the kids are the least vulnerable to having symptoms or getting ill from this. Their immune systems are a little bit better than the people that are much older, but they say, okay, but kids can come home and they're going to be with their grandparents or something like that. And I think that's really on the parents' responsibility to say, look, if you're going to participate in sports, then we can't see grandma and grandpa for a couple of weeks or something like that, or we're going to postpone this, or we're going to make sure we're tested before we see grandma. I think people are smart enough that they don't want to infect the most vulnerable population. And I think it's like you said, there's sort of a comfort level that you have to, almost like consumer confidence in whatever it is. Confidence going to a restaurant, confidence in going to sports. And if you're doing the right things, then people will gain that confidence and see, hey, this is actually very safe. I'm still kind of amazed that we're in this comfortable rut of red here, and we can't really advance out of it, primarily because of our population in San Diego County being about 3.3 million, where the states that the counties in the state that have advanced are much less densely populated.
Yep.
We are, and I think we have to live with this disease. We can't hide from it all the time.
Yeah, look, we obviously concur, and I think if you look at the youth sports landscape here in San Diego specifically, and I would say across California, we've done a much better job, frankly, than the political leaders in our country. Sorry, respectfully, and that we've actually come together and worked together to make this thing happen. I mean, our biggest competitors, the people that we're absolutely dying to beat on the weekends, we're joining hands and working together to make sure that we're using the same protocols, that we're learning from each other, we're sharing information and data, we're working together to get in front of politicians. I mean, I think that we've done as responsible of a job as anybody, and we've actually put forth a pilot program in front of both the city and the county, and try to get anybody to listen that said, look, we don't want to open up games, irresponsibly, but why don't we do something like a 4-week study to see how, gameplay is safe around kids? And we offered up, in Del Mar, we have 120 acres that we can control like a lab. We control, it's not like a city park. We control anybody that comes in, how they get in, where they're wearing masks, when they're hand sanitizing, gated, all those things. And we offered that up and had very little take, frankly, from our leaders in the city and the county. The only group that actually sort of raised their hand and said, hey, we think this is a great idea and we want to do it, is Rady Children's Hospital. And so we're working closely with Rady now to create a pilot program, a study with them to do exactly that. So the idea is that right after Thanksgiving, we're going to start testing all of our kids once a week with Rady's, so that we can really start to understand if the kids are truly not seeing any symptoms and passing it on to their family. So I give us huge, great grades for being, thoughtful and responsible. Yet I feel like we still have zero voice when it comes to speaking to our political leaders. And I think that's the biggest frustration we've had. We actually started a campaign called the Kids First campaign, because the whole idea is, look, every industry that we have, it has a lobbyist in Sacramento, right? I mean, the bar industry, the restaurant industry, Disneyland obviously has multiple lobbyists who are struggling. Kids, youth sports, there's not a sophistication level, nor should there be. And there shouldn't be the kind of funding that we take from families to be needing to lobby in Sacramento. And so we don't have a voice. And it's really, I think that's the big crime. And you're seeing kids be, kind of be the victim here in a couple ways. One is that, kids, when they don't have a chance to compete and do the things they love, that's when you see depression and suicide rates, which have all gone up significantly. We've seen it, right? And then what's worst is it's hitting the lowest socioeconomic kids the most, right? Because when we can't have tournaments, when clubs can't have tournaments and events, that's where they raise the extra dollars they have to be able to fund scholarships, right? So when Del Mar Sharks can't host their event at our sports park where they raise money to scholarship kids, or Chula Vista Rebels, who also hold their events at our sports park, can't come in here and raise their money through events that they use to scholarship kids, then that scholarship money is no longer available for those kids. And so, I think people underestimate both kind of the emotional impact on kids and then the socioeconomic impact on the community when kids can't play.
Well, I think that's a great combination with Rady's Children's Hospital. That was smart. I really think that's a great idea, because then you're even more showing how safe that you want to be and are willing to do. And as a local politician here, the frustration that we have, unfortunately it's a game of mother may I. It's like we go to the governor's office and we say we want guidance for youth sports. Well, they may give us a guidance, but it may not be until we get to the tier 1, or I'm not sure what it used to be, yellow. Yeah, whichever that, it's 1 or 4 or whatever. It's a yellow tier, which is almost essentially impossible. Even if we had a vaccine, we still couldn't, reach less than 1 person per 100,000 testing positive in San Diego County, which is how you get to and stay in yellow. So that's kind of the frustration for your local politicians is it's Mother May I with the governor's office, and I just really think this coalition that you started is a great idea with the Radius. And that actually shows, hopefully, a little more muscle or strength on your end is for getting these kids out. And one thing you mentioned is kind of near and dear for the county is the behavioral health issues for these kids. One of the biggest increases of deaths in youths and basically in the population is drug overdose. People are coping with this isolation. People are coping with this, with not being able to go out and socialize with drugs. And we've got triple the number of drug overdoses, death by drug overdoses.
Yep.
Now, hopefully not the younger kids, but maybe, some of the older kids potentially triple the number of drug overdoses since March, when the lockdowns actually went into place. And so I just think, youth should be able to get out there, and especially outdoors where they tell us all we need to go, and exercising and getting the strength and socialization that they need.
Yeah.
I'm going to continue to fight for you. I'm going to try to keep pushing and do it logically, do it safely, do the social distancing, abide by all the protocols. But I think you just need the opportunity to prove yourself. Like you said, a 4-week program or something like that, to me sounds wonderful, and prove that no outbreaks, no family outbreaks, I think is commendable.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And I'm certainly glad you're seeing into the issue of the mental health. I would say talk to any coach, youth coach today, talk to any teacher today, and they'll tell you that the amount of conversations they're having around mental health with their kids is 10x what they've ever done before. We actually just met with our entire coaching staff last week, and the number one topic was mental health and how you can actually start to see the signs of that. And look, the reality is that, we have people who are, professionals and have spent their entire lives trying to figure out how to develop kids through youth sports, but they're not professionals in seeing the signs of mental health. And so it's really difficult, and they all want to try. But as we all know, those are complex issues. And I'm afraid the lasting effects on some of those kids is going to be more significant than any of us realize. And I think there's a simple result for it, which is, let us be responsible for ourselves and open up a little bit more when it comes to just basic outdoor youth sports.
Miles, did you want to kind of wrap us up here?
Yeah, I wanted to maybe a little lighter part of this, because I think what you guys are talking about is, vitally important. Brian, have you heard of stories? I heard of funny, or maybe funny is not the word, a ridiculous story about a baseball team from I want to say Penasquitos playing a team in Carlsbad in Mesa, Arizona last week. Have you heard some ridiculous stories like this?
Yeah, we've had our thumb on the pulse of youth sports and that stuff. And the most ridiculous stories we're hearing is baseball tournaments in Yuma, Arizona, where of 100 teams, 95 of them are from Southern California. The semifinals and the finals are teams playing each other from San Diego. And the worst part of all is that the Motel 6 in Yuma, Arizona is charging $300 a night on the weekends and getting it sold out every weekend. So you can imagine, could you imagine as a family having to deal with that? But that's the reality. That's the length that people will go to right now.
Wow.
It's probably more dangerous to drive to Yuma than it is to catch the virus.
Yeah, especially.
I think that is a perfect soundbite.
Brian, I appreciate you coming on. Supervisor, you want to end it?
Well, I just want to say thank you very much, Brian, and for all you do with our kids. And we're going to keep pushing. And I think, as you mentioned, the lobbyists in Sacramento, and even, lobbying your local officials so we can keep putting the pressure on is kind of the best effort. But, keeping it safe, doing the right things, just you need the opportunity to prove yourself. And we're going to keep fighting for it.
Yeah, thanks. Be a voice for us. We appreciate it.